Hello, everyone. Welcome to the live stream pre-show. We're about 10 minutes before getting started with today's N10-007 today, Network Plus. We almost did the wrong stream. It was almost the wrong thing. Well, we would know very quickly when we started going through this that I was on the wrong day. How did that happen? Hi, everybody. Hello, chat room. Let's see if I can pop the chat room out. There we go. We'll stick the chat room on the left side of the screen. We'll check, put YouTube on the other side of the screen. That is all good. Okay, that all looks okay. All looks like it's working. We've got questions up. That's what you see in front of me. Presentation is ready here, which you can't really see because laptop angle. We've got recordings going here, recordings going there. I think we're in good shape. You can't see it, but up here is a large 54-inch television or whatever, 50-inch, with all of my screens and displays that are there. So those appear to be ready to go. Everything is lit up, so we're good. I like when everything's lit up. It is lit. This is lit. I think we're in good shape. It's all Network Plus today. I'm going to be doing questions in the first hour that you will be answering online. I'll tell you how to do that in just a moment. And we'll be talking about in the second hour. I'm going to turn those around. We'll open up the phone lines. I'll take questions from the chat room. So it'll be more of a interactive, unplanned, who knows what you're going to ask kind of thing in the second hour. So be ready with your questions to have those things there. Yes, CompTIA is going to be allegedly providing home-based testing on the 15th. Is that good or bad? Well, I guess that depends on how you look at it. I personally would recommend that everybody, if you can, to wait and take your exam in a proper testing center. I think testing at home is fraught with challenges, and I think it creates more of a stressful situation than anything else. I think also testing at home has some restrictions, at least we don't know the details yet. CompTIA has not told us here's what you will be allowed to do. Traditionally, the method of online testing that they are doing does not allow you to have any paper or pencil in front of you, which would put you at a disadvantage to being in a testing center. So there are people, though, that need to get these tests done quickly. A job is waiting on it. They don't live anywhere close to a testing center. This is their only option. Of course, you would take it at home. It makes perfect sense. There's also I think going to be a bit of a challenge to scale this up. They're not going to be able to fit, thousands of people into a testing in the first week. So there may be quite a delay on this. We'll have to see how they're able to manage that as well. It'll be very interesting to see how this turns out to make all of those things happen. We've got about 7 minutes before we get started with the Network Plus study group. I've got all Network Plus questions. I didn't write these questions until yesterday. These are fresh in my mind now. Normally, I write these questions about a week before. Hopefully, by the latest I do it is on the weekend. Sometimes I write it a month before. I just queue them up for the month, and they're ready to go, and I don't have to worry about them. This one, I was not quite as prepared. I don't know why. It just worked out that way. I do know why, but it just worked out that way. So, but we have questions. That's the important part. They're all brand new. They're all questions you haven't seen before, or they're questions that I've written. Have we seen them before? Well, sometimes that happens. So that's the way. If you want to know more about how the online testing will work, we really don't know, but keep looking at the CompTIA.org website, and they will eventually give you more details. All they've really said so far is they're doing it on the 5th. They're starting it on the 15th, and it will be the Pearson VUE OnView, O-N-V-U-E, the OnView. This is Pearson VUE. This is OnView from Pearson VUE is the method they will be using. So I have no idea. Does it say March? Does YouTube say March? We can fix that. I say we can fix that. That doesn't necessarily mean we can actually fix that. Let's see what it says. It does say March because I just copy and pasted. Now it says April. And of course, the main screen says April. You don't see it. That's this screen. That says April. That's the important part. The thumbnail looks right. I got the thumbnail right, everybody. Nothing else. Let's hope more than the thumbnail's right today.
I'll have to see how that works out. Will they extend the vouchers that were purchased previously? They said they are. It's on the main site, CompTIA.org. There you go. And yes, although YouTube does say March, this is the April study group. We are not doing last month's study group today. I promise you. This is all brand new. All brand new April stuff. The background is Melbourne. It actually is. Yeah, right there. It certainly is. Fantastic city. I have been there. Wonderful people. When I was there, a very good wine and cigar bar I went to. I wish I could remember the name of it. It's been a while. It's been a long time since I've been there. I need to get back. It was quite enjoyable. I went to my first live footy there in Melbourne. Go D's. So that was fantastic. I really enjoyed that. But that's one I got to get back to for sure. Okay. I've got all questions for Network Plus today, but the after show questions can be anything. So, well, almost anything in the after show. So if you're wanting to ask a question, it's already getting warm in here with the lights. So let's get some AC going. That would be air conditioner. Here in the world headquarters here in Florida, it tends to get cold and it tends to get hot, and I have to cool it down with the AC, and then it gets too cold, then I have to turn the AC off, and it's just a mess. So we'll turn it down to a decent number there. What else is up? What else is going on here? Well, it's about the same thing. For me, just making new content. So I've got new things that are being writing for that. Where I am in Florida, it actually does get too cold. So I have to worry about pipes freezing, and I have to worry about things getting too hot too. I'm in that weird part of Florida where things happen that way. But right now, here in Florida, it's warm outside. What is the temperature? It's 80 degrees. So it's getting up for those of my friends in Europe and Canada, we're getting close to 30. It's going to be a warm day. The high is supposed to be somewhere close to 30, just so you're familiar with that. Right now, 80 degrees. You can probably see it right there on my countdown clock, and being able to see that. We've got all the Network Plus is here. We've got the just going through my checklist. It all looks really good. It all looks super good. Get things out of the way. We've got those charts up. We're in good shape, folks. We are in really good shape. Thanks for joining us today, by the way. Thanks for being here. I know a lot of you are kind of in the house, stuck at home. So this should be kind of fun. I like doing kind of the game showish kind of question answer here in the first hour. So it's kind of fun to go through, see how we do, see how we remember, see how we do things, and make that happen. For most of us, all of this is Network Plus. So if you are watching this and you have your A Plus, your Network Plus, or your Security Plus, this study group would allow you to earn a CEU, a webinar CEU. Listen in for the first hour where I will give you instructions on how to receive an email certificate, a digitally signed email certificate for that. Link to the question answer page, professormesser.com/QA. We'll talk about that at the beginning of the show as well. All the questions will be at professormesser.com/QA for question and answer. Someone was nice enough to send that in and tell me that's what the QA is for. It's for question and answer. So we've got a question even waiting there for you. So hopefully that can help you out as well. Let's see. I think the last thing I have to worry about sort of my voice. So let's give it a shot. It is pollen season here in Florida. There is pollen everywhere. And it affects my voice. Makes it sound like this. No, it doesn't. It makes it a little scratchy. So hopefully that will unscratch it. That is my singer's
Singer's Soothing Throat Spray. This one is Serious Cinnamon. I suppose that's how you tell if it's working. You have to say it. Singer's Soothing Throat Spray, Serious Cinnamon. Okay, let's see if we can get things going. It is 12 noon. We're going to get the study group going, get some QA going. Hang on, everybody. Let's get this thing started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the April 2020 Professor Messer Network Plus Study Group, coming to you live from the Messer Studios headquarters here in Florida. Thanks for joining us. We have all live Q&A for you in this first hour. I'm going to ask you questions from the N10-007 Network Plus exam objectives, and you'll have answers there. I'll show you how all this works in just a moment. And then in the second hour, I turn this around, where we will have all questions coming from you. You'll ask me questions. And they can be questions about anything. It doesn't have to be about Network Plus. We can do all of those things as well. The way that you play the game, I guess it's kind of a game we play here in this first hour, is you would pop open a new browser window and go to professormesser.com/QA to be able to answer the questions that are there. You can also run it with an app on your smartphone or tablet. Go to your favorite app store, and you want to install an app called the Socrative Student app. Socrative Student app. There's a Socrative Teacher app. That's not the one you want. That's mine. You want the Socrative Student app. And when you launch that, it will ask you for a room name. The room name is Professor Messer, all one word, ProfessorMesser. Worst case, pop open a new browser window, go to professormesser.com/QA. And if you do that, there will be a message waiting for you, a question waiting for you right there that asks, which of these would be the best, which of these would best describe the location of a CSU DSU? This is our rewind question. This is a question from last month. So again, no answering in the chat room, no answering online, no guesses in the chat room. To answer this, you would go to professormesser.com/QA, where it asks which of these would best describe the location of a CSU DSU. Is it between a fiber network and a copper network? Is it at the power supply of a router? Is it between a WAP and the wired network? Is it between a router and a WAN circuit? Or is it at the extension between two networks? Those are your 5 options. Lock in your answer, see which one you think it is, and we will come back to this question in just a moment. Don't forget that you can get our daily pop quiz questions for A+, our weekly pop quiz questions for Network Plus and Security Plus on our Twitter page, our Twitter stream, our Twitter thing, professormesser.com/Twitter. We're also doing them on Instagram now as well. If you're an Instagram person, you can join us there. And the questions are in an Instagram carousel where you simply slide to the left to see what the answer is. Find that at professormesser.com/Instagram. Don't forget you can also follow us on YouTube. professormesser.com/YouTube will get you to the channel. Well, a lot of us are staying in and purchasing things from Amazon. And one of the ways that you can help support our site is to purchase things from Amazon, but go through our site to do that. You go to professormesser.com/Amazon and click the link that says click the Amazon link below to start shopping. That will still have the same prices you've always paid at Amazon, but they'll give us a bit of a commission, which does help keep the lights on. So we appreciate that. All of the things that we're doing today will be from the N10-007. That's the version of the exam objectives that are currently being used. This was an exam objectives that were released on March the 1st, 2018. So if you're someone who keeps track of these things, 18, 19, 20, 21. So the second half of 2021, you'll probably see these exams finally go away. So if you are studying for this right now and you are studying the N10-007 here in April of 2020, you have plenty of time. You've got exactly the right content. When you take the exam, it's 90 minutes long. You'll get a maximum of 90 questions. It might be fewer than that. And it's an exam that has both multiple choice questions, like the one we just had, and performance-based questions, like the one we're about to have after this. So stick around for some of that. If you want to get your hands on the objectives, they are incredibly valuable. You can find them at professormesser.com/objectives. I'll also remind you that every single video of my course is available for you to watch online for free. People send me emails all the time saying, I'm just getting into this Network Plus thing. How much is your course? And I tell them nothing.
You can watch the whole thing online, every minute of every video. There's no paywall. There's no registration. Just watch them. There is also an offline version of this that you could purchase if you wanted something that was not online. You can find out about that at professormesser.com/getnetplus. This study group is also available on replay on my website. The whole video replay is available immediately after this. There's also an audio-only podcast version. You'll find that at professormesser.com/podcast. And you'll see A Plus Network Plus Security Plus is all there on that podcast page. You can either add it to your podcasting program or listen to it right there on that page. So a lot of options available at professormesser.com/podcast. If you show up on YouTube a day afterwards, you'll also notice that there are timestamps for everything. My marketing manager, Lori, who has to watch this whole thing. Hi, Lori. She's going through and listening to this entire study group and putting timestamps in. Takes her about a day to get them in there, which I think is incredibly fast. So if you ever want to see where a question was, you want to jump right to the answer, you want to jump to a particular caller or find something you were looking for, it's a very easy way to negotiate the study group once things are over. Let's look at that question that we asked earlier, which asked which of these would best describe the location of a CSU DSU. This is how it's going to go for me today. The possible answers are between a fiber network and a copper network, at the power supply of a router, between a WAP and the wired network, between a router and a WAN circuit, and at the extension between two networks. So how did we do on this particular answer? 60% of you say between a router and a WAN circuit. 18% said between a fiber network and a copper network. 12% said at the extension between two networks, which almost sounds like the same thing. 7% between a WAP and the wired network, and 3% at the power supply of a router. Well, I guess it would help if we knew what a CSU DSU was. From those of you that were here last month, this was the first one of the questions in last month's study group. CSU DSU stands for Channel Service Unit / Data Service Unit. That's where the CSU DSU, we never call it the, please point me to the Channel Service Unit Data Service Unit, please. We don't. Just tell me where you keep your CSU DSU. Where are those stored? And it usually goes between a WAN provider's side of the network and your internal router side of the network. It effectively is translating between the digital signals being sent by the service provider into a set of digital signals that your router can understand. Technically, this is two devices in one. The CSU is connecting to the network provider side. The DSU is connecting to what we call DTE equipment, your data terminal equipment, which is your local devices. Somebody says, where's the DTE for this WAN? They're probably talking about your router that you're using for that WAN. You'll also find, this is an external CSU DSU, you'll find some are rack mounted. So you can have many CSU DSUs on a single 19-inch rack. And often you'll find CSU DSUs may even be integrated into a router slot itself. So that's what you will find with a CSU DSU. Some folks in the chat room even saying, how's a cable modem different than a CSU DSU? Technically speaking, we call it a cable modem. Technically, it's a cable CSU DSU. How you like that? You're thinking that description I'm giving is very similar to what my cable modem is doing. That's because your cable modem, technically speaking, is a CSU DSU. But we just call it a cable modem because imagine everyone in their homes trying to figure out, what is a CSU? Why do we call it? It's cable modem. Oh, a modem. I know what that is. So that's why we call it a cable modem instead of a cable CSU DSU. So if you're one of the folks that did answer D, between a router and a WAN circuit, you did get that one absolutely correct in how it operates. CSU DSU is a layer 1 device. It is not a layer 2 device. It knows nothing of what's real. Well, I guess technically there is some layer 2 component to it, but it doesn't forward any traffic or understand DTE, DCE. It doesn't forward or understand MAC address. It doesn't forward or understand those pieces of it. It just takes one signal, converts it based on what type of configuration you've told it to convert it as, and spits the signal out on the other side. All layer 1 in how it's operating. So that should help a little bit. Not that CSU DSU ever comes up as a OSI type. It's not really an OSI thing. I guess if you have a layer 1 problem, CSU DSU would absolutely be one of those things you would look at on a layer 1 problem. Should help you out as well. So this is a multiple choice question. This is a question where we had a question. There were multiple answers to choose from. We just chose the answer we thought was correct. Very easy if you happen to know what the answer is. But on your exam, the first set of questions that you're going to get are not going to be multiple choice questions. So be aware of this. This can throw you if you're not ready for this at the beginning of the exam. These will be questions that could be putting you in a command prompt and asking you to run a function. It could be a network map and asking you to drag and drop different components onto it. It could be something that's a matching question. You may have to put things in a different order from highest to lowest, fastest to slowest. You never know exactly what they might be. But one of the things I like to give you at the very beginning of our study group is our first new question of the month is a performance-based question. So I have for you a Network Plus performance-based question, and this one is a fill in the blank. I have for you 5 different things that I want you to give me an answer to. So are we ready for our performance-based question? Here we go. This question asks, what OSI layer would be most associated with the following? I want to thank that person in the chat room for asking about OSI layers. So here are 5 different scenarios, and for each 5 of those, I want you to tell me what OSI layer is associated with those. Each one of them is different. So in this particular case, that will be my hint for you that I'm not duplicating any of these. For those of you listening in on the study group, here are the 5 different sections. The first would be a duplicate IP address was identified in the data center. What OSI layer would be most associated with that? The second is an email service is requesting authentication credentials. Good. Have to figure out what OSI model that happens to be. The third is the MAC address of a server is Bravo Charlie 764 Echo 0456 Fox Charlie. Tell me what OSI model that happens to be. The fourth is a construction crew has severed a fiber run between buildings. And the last one is that a firewall is blocking all traffic flows that use TCP/80. Now, if you think you know the answer, do not answer in the chat room. You want to use this link right at the bottom of the screen, professormesser.com/QA, to lock in your answer online. It's a fill in the blank. You can just tell me what those layers are. You just give them to me in order. We'll figure those things out and figuring out the details of this. So what OSI layer would be most associated with the following? A duplicate IP address was identified in the data center. An email service is requesting authentication details. The MAC address of a server is Bravo Charlie 764 Echo 0456 Fox Charlie. A construction crew has severed a fiber run between buildings. And a firewall is blocking all traffic flows that use TCP/80. For those of you that are answering 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, not the right answer, unfortunately. Wouldn't that be great if it was, though? Wouldn't that be phenomenal if it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? It's not. It's another hint for you. For those, knowing the different OSI layers and knowing what happens at each one of those layers is pretty important. It's not just important for the exam, because it's important because it is on the exam objectives, but it's also important because we use these terms all day, every day in networking. The OSI model seems like it would be a very odd, non-specific way of communicating, but in reality, it really is pointing us to where problems are or telling us how a particular function works inside of our network. It's very common for technical people to say, we ran into a layer 3 issue here because of this thing, or we ran into a layer 2 problem there because of this other thing, and people will know what you're talking about. Probably most importantly, they will know what you're talking about. So if you're ever in a case where you're trying to figure out, what do we do with this? How does that work? Where do we go? The OSI model can really help describe things, sometimes even better than describing the problem itself. Let's step through each one of these and see how we do with them, shall we? Let's begin with the very first one. That was a duplicate IP address was identified in the data center. Our key with this one was IP address. Anytime you have anything relating to an IP address, you should automatically think that's a layer 3 issue. Anything dealing with routing is a layer 3 issue. Anything relating to a duplicate IP address, layer 3 problem. Somebody didn't assign the proper subnet mask, a layer 3 problem. So all of those things are OSI layer 3. Second on our list An email service is requesting authentication credentials. I get this all the time. You log into Yahoo Mail, Google Mail, Outlook Mail. The first thing it's going to ask you is, what's your username and password? You type that in. All these things are happening up at the highest layer. This is the application talking to us. So the application, that is a layer 7 OSI, layer 7 situation where it is telling us this is what's happening with the app. We're seeing it on our screen. The application is showing us information on the screen. That's absolutely layer 7. The third on our list, the MAC address of a server, is Bravo Charlie 764 Echo 0456 Fox Charlie. Anytime you see a MAC address, anything dealing with back in the frame relay days, it was DLCI, anything dealing on the WAN with DCE, DTE, as I mentioned earlier, those are a layer 2 address. Anything dealing with switching, it's a layer 2 issue. Anything dealing with spanning tree or spanning tree problems, layer 2 problem. Anything dealing with ARP, probably layer 2, could be layer 3. ARP's a little different. ARP's a little bit of an outlier. ARP is shared between 2 and 3 in some ways. At the core, it's layer 2. The content inside the ARP packet is layer 3. So you can kind of have it straddle those two, I think. But this wasn't ARP. This was about a MAC address. Let's do the fourth one, rather. It says a construction crew has severed a fiber run between buildings. And my whole day is shot when that happens. Construction crew has severed a fiber run between buildings. Well, if you're breaking my fiber, it's probably a physical layer problem. So you're dealing with layer 1. You're dealing with something that really is related to the signal getting from one side of the network to another. So that construction crew, you can go out and yell at them. In the meantime, your network is still down. So that's one of those things that happens sometimes. And you should already have a second run somewhere. You should have already thought about that. Just saying. Next on our list, last on our list, a firewall is blocking all traffic flows that use TCP 80. I'm assuming it means TCP port 80 because that's what the slash is. TCP 80, anytime you see a port number, a UDP port number, a TCP port number, anything relating to a port number, then it's going to be at layer 4. There's the OSI layer. So just as I said, did not duplicate any of those layers. And they are relatively straightforward scenarios. These are relatively straightforward things that you would run into on a normal network. A duplicate IP address, an application issue, a construction crew severing a fiber run. It will happen to you eventually. So those are things that become a little bit of a problem. Make sure you're familiar with where these things are in the OSI models. If you're trying to get more of an insight into this, you'll find it in my video for my N10-007. Section 1.2, the video name is Understanding the OSI Model. And that will help you as well, being able to work through all of those. If you're ever in a situation where you're trying to figure this out, try to break out where those are coming from. Now everybody in the chat room is all upset about me calling ARP layer 2, which it is. It's really not layer 3. But I'm saying layer 3 because I don't want to get your emails, quite honestly. ARP's a layer 2 thing. ARP operates at layer 2. What's inside the packet doesn't matter. What's inside the data, irrelevant. How is ARP operating? ARP operates at layer 2. So we can all fight about that one later too. I don't think there are some books that will tell you differently anyway. So now we can all get in the whole mash together and kind of scrap it up a bit. I'm fine with that. That's my justification for it. If you'd like to argue with that, you're welcome to. See how that goes in my inbox. RIP my inbox. Let's do another question though. Now that we're through our performance-based question, it was effectively a multiple fill-in-the-blank scenario. You might get a handful of questions similar to this on your exam. Be ready for those. But you'll notice the content of these questions comes directly from the exam objectives. So don't be thrown that there are performance-based questions at the beginning, because the performance-based questions are asking you the same content as the multiple choice-based questions. They're just asking you in a different way. Think about it that way. Let's do some multiple choice-based. We'll shift gears a bit. And the next question I have for you asks, Which of the following would be the best choice for an Ethernet connection between buildings that are 2 kilometers apart? Which of the following would be the best choice for an Ethernet connection between buildings that are 2 kilometers apart? Is it 1000 base SX? Is it 100 base T? Is it 1000 base LX? Is it 10G base T? Or is it 1000 base TX? 5 Ethernet standards, they're staring you in the face, and you're wondering, why did I skip that video on Ethernet standards? Which of the following would be the best choice for an Ethernet connection between buildings that are 2 kilometers apart? Is it 1000 base SX? Is it 100 base T? Is it 1000 base LX? Is it 10G base T? Or is it 1000 base TX? Let's see if we can figure that answer out. Please don't answer in the chat room. You want to put your answer at professormesser.com/QA. Now, if you're watching this on replay, one of the things you'll notice is nothing is there. Under professormesser.com/QA, you have to be here live to be able to find out how to answer these things interactively. There's just no way to do it after the fact. So we welcome you to join us live. You can always find out when the next live event is going to be by going to professormesser.com/calendar. And you'll know on our event calendar, you know exactly when the next live event is going to be. And we are literally still talking about ARP in the chat room. This is what I've done. I'm so sorry. This is maybe it will die down eventually. Months from now, we estimate that we will no longer be talking about the OSI model and ARP in my chat room to be able to do those. This is a little bit of a challenge, and this question could go a couple of different ways. So we'll have to see which exact standard you're going to follow and how this would really fit for all of those. I wonder if this is where we really have to kind of break these things down into different pieces. Hopefully you're able to recognize some of the nuances, the naming conventions used for Ethernet standards. We'll have to see. A number of you have locked in your answer, so let's see how we did with this one. Which of the following would be the best choice for an Ethernet connection between buildings that are 2 kilometers apart? Is it 1000 base SX, 100 base T, 1000 base LX, 10G base T, or 1000 base TX? And we just don't know. We're just not sure. Could it be anything? I guess it could be anything. But the real challenge we have here is figuring out how can we get all of this information from one side to the other, except the buildings are so far apart. 2 kilometers is pretty far apart. You're not going to be able to run a copper cable through all of those connections. You're going to want to run a fiber connection, such as 1000 base SX. Would that fit? 1000 base SX runs gigabit over fiber optics, usually using multimode fiber. And it goes somewhere between 220 to 500 meters, depending on what the type of fiber you're using, and in some cases, the type of equipment you have on the other side. Our particular question, though, was asking about a distance that was 2 kilometers. That's 2,000 meters. I did the math in my head. And 2,000 seems to be larger than 500. I may have to get back to you on that one, which means we may have to jump up to a type of standard that can support a much longer distance, such as 1000 base LX, still running gigabit Ethernet. It doesn't go any faster because we're running this different Ethernet standard, but it does use a different method of communication. Usually over single mode fiber, you can go to about 5 kilometers, depending on the type of fiber, depending on the type of equipment. These are generalized numbers with the distances. So when you look at those and you're trying to figure out which one fits best for 2 kilometers, in this case, 1000 base LX is the one that really does fit the best. The way most people remember SX, short haul, LX, long haul, short and long. So if you ever in that situation where you're trying to figure out what that is, of course that's in context because you have to know what is short haul, what is long haul. But if you know those things, you can at least find those standards there. Yes, as you've seen, the SX does not mean single mode. What would the LX mean? L mode. No, that doesn't work either. So that's how I remember short and long. And that's probably where the standards bodies were trying to go with that too. Little mode, maybe? Kinda? Probably not. And that's why in this particular case, to go 2 kilometers, the 39% of you that said 1,000 base LX, that is the right answer. 1,000 base SX could have fit if it was a little shorter of a distance. Not many of us chose that, only 18%. All the other standards listed here, 100 base T, 1,000 base TX, and 10G base T are all over copper. And the farthest that some of these standards will go, 100 meters. Well, 2 kilometers, much more than 100 meters. So 100 megabit, 1,000 megabit, which is 1 gig, and the 10G, which is 10 gig. Those standards are all over copper for those. Now, in the test, when you're talking about distances like this, when you get into networking and dealing with distances and dealing with almost anything in networking, almost everything is in metric. Almost nothing is in imperial. So just get used to meters. Just get used to talking about everything as 100 meters, as 1,000 meters, as kilometers. That's just how we talk about these standards, because as it turns out, they use these standards all over the world. Who knew? I thought it was just in the US. But nope, we have to talk internationally here in the US. So we'll talk meters, and we will, of course, this does become a problem if you go to the UK, because if you get in your car, they'll tell you how many miles you need to go. That's another problem. And what is the deal with construction? Let's not get into that. The answer here was obviously 1,000 based LX, the long haul gigabit Ethernet over long wavelength laser. So we can go in single mode 5. We're up to 5 kilometers. If you answered C, 1,000 base LX, you got this one absolutely right. Now we're going to go down that rat hole. Let's not do that. Let's instead do another question. Next question on my list asks, an IT manager would like to estimate the amount of time before a core switch becomes unavailable. Which of the following would describe this time frame? Would it be MTBF? Would it be SLA? Would it be MTTR? Would it be EULA? Would it be SMART? Some of these don't sound like they're real things, but all 5 of those are real things. I didn't make those up. An IT manager would like to estimate the amount of time before a core switch becomes unavailable. Which of the following would describe this time frame? Is it MTBF, SLA, MTTR, EULA, or SMART? I'm intentionally not saying some of these right for those of you that want to point that out. I know that. If you think you know the answer, please don't answer in the chat room. You want to instead go to professormesser.com/QA, lock in your answer there. And the folks after the fact that tell me to quit saying that after every question, I always stop saying it once it stops happening. So maybe if it stops happening, I'll stop saying it. For those of you not following along. Sometimes, most of the time, I don't have to go back and edit the video, so you can actually watch the chat. But hopefully on the replay, there's also a chat replay. I've already deleted things out of this, so you've missed some of that. You're wondering, nobody's answering in the chat room. Well, you don't see it, but in some cases, many people do. They just get edited out for that one. Yeah, this is a good point, by the way, in the chat room. Some people are saying, I don't know, but I'm just going to guess. Great idea. Perfect idea. On the actual exam, if you don't know, just take a guess. One thing we know about the studying on the exam is that if you don't answer, you don't get points. If you answer wrong, you also don't get points. But if you answer right, even if it's a guess, you get points. So there's no penalty for taking a guess. The only possible outcome is you happen to luck into some points. So always take a guess on these. Now, you should always take a guess here today because there's nothing to lose for this. So feel free to go through all of this, figure out the details, go through all of these. Yeah, that's useful. Useful to have that there. Let's see how we did with this and how we work through these. Let's see how the answer came through. An IT manager would like to estimate the amount of time before a core switch becomes unavailable. So which of the following would best describe this time frame?
And the possible answers: MTBF, SLA, MTTR, EULA, and SMART. 55% of you say that it is MTBF. We'll talk about what that is in just a moment. Double digits, almost a tie for second between MTTR and SLA. And then you got single digits, almost a tie for third, 5 and 6% between EULA and SMART, respectively. So this is one where when you start getting into it, wondering, what do we do? What sections do we go through? Where do we break these out? How does this work with all of these? Hopefully that can help you get through these. Let's step through what some of these things mean, though. Maybe we'll have to figure it out based on what we know it isn't. And what we're really talking about here is understanding recovery. If something was to break in your network, the amount of time that it takes on average to restore this thing, to get it back up and running, is the MTTR, the mean time to repair. So something is already broken. That's the question the manager is going to ask, right? This thing is broken. How long is this going to take to get back up and running? That's your MTTR. You can give him an average. Or if you're like Scotty, you double what the average is, and then you get it done in record time and you're the hero, which is what you should be doing. That's my professional opinion. Another thing you need to know is how long it takes between the time it is running now and how long it's going to be before it breaks. If we put this piece of equipment into our network, how long is it really going to run until this thing just completely fails on us on average? And that is your mean time between failures, MTBF, mean time between failures. That's an important number too, because sometimes we know that we can predict some of this equipment has moving parts. We know that some of these moving parts are not going to last forever. They often say it's not how long, it's not if it's going to break, it's how long it's going to break. Those situations are real. Those are things you have to worry about. One of the things you may want to do is, if you're working with a third party that can replace this equipment when it breaks, you may want to have a contract with them saying, if I call you, or if you're monitoring this and it breaks, I need it replaced in 2 hours. I need it replaced in 4 hours. There is this standard that we're creating called a service level agreement, an SLA, and we've agreed that if this breaks, you're going to be here in 2 hours with a person plugging a new one in and getting it back up and running, because we have a contract and we're going to pay you money to be able to do that. Very common to have that happen. So the one we were most interested in is the IT manager wanted to estimate the amount of time before core switch becomes unavailable. That would be the mean time between failures, or MTBF. MTBF, 56% of you said, yep, that is the right answer, and you were right. If you answered A, MTBF, that is the right answer. Mean time to repair was C. 18% of you said that. SLA, the service level agreement, 15% said B. Now, the others that were on this list, like a EULA, an end-user licensing agreement, 4%. Obviously, it's not a licensing agreement. And the SMART statistics that you would get from a storage device, like a hard drive, obviously it doesn't apply here. We're talking about a core switch, and the statistics don't tell us how long before the switch becomes unavailable, although it might give us a heads up. That's not the right answer either. It's only 6% of you bet on that one. Anyway, the answer indeed was A, MTBF. There's a lot of details. We've already gone through 3 or 4 questions here, and you can see there's a lot in the Network Plus exam. It is a myriad of subnetting and protocols and security and troubleshooting and topologies and proxies and all kinds of things. And if you watch every single one of my videos, you can take notes as you go along, write down everything I say, write down everything that's on the screen, write down all the details that are right there. But of course, that's a lot of video. That is many, many hours of video. And of course, I've got all these charts and all these diagrams. One thing you might want to consider is to get a set of notes that I've already created for you. It can save you an amazing amount of time. And it's presented to you in a way that you could put on all of your mobile devices. You can get a physical book version of this. These are my Network Plus course notes. The Network Plus course notes are a PDF that you can download right now. The Network Plus version of this, 66 pages that go step by step through every single one of my videos. All the port numbers, all of the breakdowns and charts and diagrams are on here. Everything that comes directly from my videos is in these course notes. These are the notes that I wish I had when I was studying for the exam, so I thought I would make some
so that you could use them as well. And it's a great way to support the website as well. We keep everything up and running here and able to do these live events and continue to create our training materials thanks to your support, so much of which comes from the sale of these course notes. So thank you for that. If you want to know more about these, you can find these at professormesser.com/NPCN. These are in a digital form that you can download right now for $20, or you can pay a little more because we have to print them. And there's a physical version, which is exactly the same. It's just printed on dead trees. It's printed on paper. It's a nice high quality paper, all full color. So a nice view of this. This is a nice book. I wouldn't do it any other way. It's a perfect bound, which means it's bound like a paperback book. And while you are waiting on the physical version to appear in your mailbox, you'll also have access to the digital version for free. So a little bit useful to have there. If you want to know more about this, you can learn more at professormesser.com/NPCN for Network Plus course notes. And thank you for your ongoing support with this. We really could not do this without you. Let's do some more Q&A. We've got more for you today. The next question asks, the accounting department again. A user in the accounting department uses a phone app to generate a random number during the login process. What factor of authentication is in use? Is it somewhere you are, something you know, something you do, something you have, or something you are? A user in the accounting department uses a phone app to generate a random number during the login process. What factor of authentication is in use? Is it somewhere you are, something you know, something you do, something you have, or something you are? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. This is one of those that all of those different options are directly from the Network Plus exam objectives. So this is one where we would select the answer that it happens to be. In the chat room, some folks are saying on the CompTIA exam, are there certain questions where you would have to select 2 or more answers in these multiple choice? So not only is a multiple choice, it's a multiple answer question. And yes, there are certain questions on the exam that they may ask you, here's a situation. What are the 2 things? They will tell you select 2 answers or select 3 answers. So they at least tell you how many of them you have to choose from. They don't just say select how many you think should apply, thankfully. I always get those wrong. But they do tell you select 2 answers. So they're very clear on how to do that. But you may have to. There'll be check boxes, and you have to check the boxes of the 2 that you think it is. And what's nice about the exams that I've taken in the past, I'm assuming they're still doing this on the exam, is if you don't select 2, it will tell you, wait, you know you're supposed to select 2, right? So if you select a different number, it would be there. Oh, it does sound familiar. It does sound like it's a Security Plus question. It almost sounds like it's an A Plus question. These types of topics span different exam types. So you will find different types and different quantities and different details of these topics from A Plus, Network Plus, Security Plus for many of these. It's one of those times where there is a little bit of a connection in the circles. They're connecting to each other just a little bit on the Venn diagram. And this is one of those overlaps, absolutely. For those of you in the chat room looking at my notes, you'll notice there are 2 different exam sections for my A Plus notes. For the A Plus exam, you have to take 2 exams. There's a 221,001 and 221,002. So it's a first exam, you got to study for that first one. Then once you pass that one, you have to take the other one. And you can do them in any order, but that's why there's 2 different set of course notes. That's why there's 2 different courses. That's why there's 2 different audio courses, 2 different downloads, because it's 2 different exams, 2 different training courses completely to have those things there. Let's see how we did with this. This question asked, a user in the accounting department uses a phone app to generate a random number during the login process. I use these all the time. What type of authentication is in use? 68% of you say it's something you have. 19% said it's something you know. 10% said it's something you do. And then single digits, 2% said something you are, and 1% said somewhere you are. So this particular question is one where we have to know these multi-factor authentication methods. You may see this written as multi-factor authentication, MFA. You may see it as 2-factor authentication, 2FA. You may see it written that way. This type of factor using a phone to generate a random number, obviously it's a random number. We don't know the number prior to logging in. And the only way we would be able to get our hands on that random number, which is really pseudo-random, but a seemingly random number, the only way to know what that number is we need to have our phone with us. So this particular login factor, this authentication factor, is something you have. If we don't have our phone, I can't imagine a moment when I wouldn't. Makes me nervous thinking about it. I'm sweating a little bit, just considering the idea. But if we did not have our phone, we would not be able to log in. We have to have it with us. Now, another types of things of something you have is a smart card. In many environments, especially federal government, the ID card that you wear on a lanyard is also a smart card that you would plug into your computer to gain access to your computer and have that there. You might also see USB tokens where a certificate is on the USB drive. We have to plug in our USB drive to be able to do that, have those things there. One of the other pieces that we work through is what we call a hardware token or software token. That's another one that does come in handy. These will generate for us these, we call them random codes. They're really pseudo-random because they're seemingly random to us humans, but in reality, the host, the server on one side knows what the next number is supposed to be, and the device in your hand knows what the next number is supposed to be, and the numbers are synchronized so that it's able to recognize what the next number is going to be. And that's why these days your phone tends to be a very good method, either in an app or sending you a number via SMS. To have this here, absolutely there. So those of you in the chat room that are just stymied over the fact that you're getting security questions on a Network Plus exam, there's an entire domain of the Network Plus exam that deals with security. So you will have to know, well, think about it, whether you're managing a server, managing a database, managing a network, or managing a firewall, there's a security aspect to every single one of these things. And this one happens to come directly from Section 4.2 of the Network Plus exam. This one is multi-factor authentication video, Section 4.2. Get your hands on the exam objectives. If you haven't done this already, I'm going to clap my hands like we're on Twitter. Go to professormesser.com/objectives and get the objectives. You will save yourself so much time. You will be so happy that you have these objectives. I can't explain it enough of how important these objectives are. I've had people come to my site after taking an exam and they said, I got a lot of stuff on the exam that I was not prepared to answer. I was not ready for some of the topics they threw at me. And I said, well, didn't you get a copy of the objectives? And they go, well, I just thought they were just an overview. I thought they were a high-level breakdown. Oh, no, no, no. The objectives are so much more. In fact, I'm going to break our normal flow here. I promise I will come back to this in a moment. I'm going to pull up the Network Plus exam objectives just so you can understand why I am so passionate about you getting your hands on these. This is the Network Plus exam objectives. There they are. My head's not there, but that's okay. Here's the objectives. They tell you a breakdown of all the domains and what you should know. Here is Section 1, networking content. Explain the purposes and uses of ports and protocols. I need to know SSH22. I need to know DNS53. I need to know SMTP25. I need to know FTP22, and so on, and so on, and so on. So the 20 or so port numbers you need to know are listed specifically in the exam objectives. That's just Section 1.1. Let's go to Section 1.2. Explain devices, applications, protocols, and services at the appropriate OSI layers. Layer 1 physical, Layer 2 data link, Layer 3 network, Layer 4, et cetera, et cetera. Now, when we were talking with, as I forward through, Section 4.0, Domain 4.0 is on network security. There it is. And Section 4.2, explain authentication and access controls, including multi-factor authentication, which is something you know, something you have, something you are, somewhere you are, and something you do, directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. That's where I got it from. All of those things are there. You'll find it professormesser.com/objectives. Get your hands on the objectives. You will be so happy you did. I promise you. Let's do some more questions that come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. This next question asks, a server administrator has replaced a web server and is A server administrator has replaced a web server and would like to verify that the new server is accepting server requests. Which of the following would be the best way to provide this verification? Would it be Nmap, path ping, IP tables, netstat, or traceroute? The question asks, a server administrator has replaced a web server and would like to verify that the new server is accepting server requests. Which of the following would be the best way to provide this verification? Is it Nmap, path ping, IP tables, netstat, or traceroute? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA, lock in your answer, and you'll be able to know exactly what it happens to be. Remember, no answers in the chat room, please. No hints in the chat room. We're going to pretend that we're sitting in the exam room. We do not have Google in front of us. No Googling. We do not have Google in front of us. We do not have our friends in front of us. We do not have our notes in front of us. We must remember this. In fact, you'll be in this position. This is a pretty good one that you could go through. I've replaced web servers all the time. I've restarted web servers. The first thing I need to know, is it up and running? Is it accepting server requests? Am I able to get there? Work on those. So this is a good real world question, I think, to have those things there. If you're one who's really trying to break this down and figure out the details, hopefully that can help you as well as you're going through all of these and breaking them down. Yep, you don't have a phone you can work with. If you're going to a testing center, your phone is locked away. If you are at home, hopefully you'll be able to take this exam at home shortly after the 15th. You can't have your phone anywhere around you. And they're watching you on your camera the entire time. They're listening to you on your camera the entire time. You have to sign and document and say, yes, it's okay for you to watch me, listen to me. I'm throwing my privacy out the window. That's how those things work. Being able to break those things down. Hopefully, it's one you can work through as well. And being able to work through those. I think that might help you. And breaking those pieces into little parts. Make sure you don't get caught with that. This is another one of those challenges. We'll talk about this maybe in the after show about what's good about taking your test at home, what's really bad about taking your test at home, because there are some really bad things. And we'll talk about, I don't mind somebody watching me when I take the exam. That's fine. There's other things that are bad that can work against you as a test taker, which might be bad. Let's see how we did with this one. The question was, a server administrator has replaced a web server and would like to verify the new server is accepting server requests. Which of the following would be the best way to provide this verification? You know, one of the things I do on my server is I look at the server log and I just watch to see if the server log is giving requests out to the people that are hitting the web server. But that wasn't one of the answers. And that's one of the things you run into on these questions on the exam is my answer in my head is check the logs and see if people are hitting the website and things going into the log. But that's not one of the answer because the question asks which of the following would be the best way to provide this verification. Maybe you don't have access to the logs. Maybe you, lowly network person, are not allowed access to the very important logs of the web server that only web server people can lay their eyes upon, which, by the way, is kind of a common thing in many places. You just don't have access to the logs, but you do have access to these things. So which one would you use? Well, we aren't quite sure. 32% of you say netstat, 25% said traceroute, which is also tied with the 24% of you that said path ping. Almost the same thing, isn't it? 15% of you said Nmap. Nmap does everything, doesn't it? And 4% of you said IP tables. So which one would we use for something like this? I think if we didn't have access to the log files itself, the best way, given these options available to us, is going to be netstat. You're able to pull up netstat on the server, and you're able to view all the connections that are being made to the server and from the server. On a web server, it's probably a lot of connections to the server. And you're able to break these out. You can even break it out by binary if this server happens to be supporting a lot of different executables. There's a lot of different services running at the same time. You can be able to use those. You can also tell it, just show me IP addresses. Don't give me names that are resolved. Sometimes that speeds up the process. But in netstat-A, most commonly on most flavors of netstat, because there are different flavors of netstat depending on what operating system you're using. This is very useful to have this here. This netstat-A is the one to have this here.
So that is the best answer to use. In fact, it's the only answer. I say best, it's the only one that fits with this scenario. And here's why. Let's break this out. So I said it's netstat D. 33% of you said netstat. 24% of you said path ping, and 24% of you said traceroute. Traceroute tells you what routers are between you and another device, but it doesn't tell you anything about if that device is actually up and running. It just tells you from a path perspective or from a route perspective, how do the packets get from point A to point B? So we know immediately B is not going to tell us that, and E is not going to tell us that. The other two options we have are IP tables and Nmap. IP tables, the 3% in IP tables is more of a firewalling function. It's a packet filtering firewalling utility. That doesn't tell us if a server is accepting requests. And Nmap only gives us a limited view. Might tell us if a port number is working. Maybe there is deep within Nmap a Lua script that we could run that could at least tell us a little bit more about perhaps what type of service is running on a machine, but it still would not be able to show us, is it showing us web server pages? It doesn't quite go far enough to show us web server pages, so Nmap would not be a good choice either. The best way, in fact, you could probably argue with me a good time about, no, Nmap will show you these things. I can write a Lua script that Nmap will show those things. I actually will give you that one. Yes, I bet you could write a Lua script that could go into Nmap and query the server for the page and bring that information back and show it to me. Wow. How long is it going to take you to do all of that? Couldn't you just bring up netstat? So that's why these questions ask these in a very particular way. Here, maybe we could go with two answers here, but now we have to make a decision between those two answers. Is it Nmap or is it netstat? Well, Nmap, I could do it, but it's more involved and it's not built into Nmap, but I could write a script, or we could just do a netstat-a. So that clearly is why it would be the best way to provide this verification. I'm going D, netstat. That's my answer. 34% of you got that absolutely right. Now, if you're watching this for ongoing credit, if you wanted to get a CEU for this, you wanted to get credit for watching this 1 hour for webinar credit from CompTIA, one of the ways you can do that, or the way you do it, is to follow these instructions. And you have to follow these instructions to earn the digitally signed email that I will send you certifying that you watched this 1 hour webinar. You go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. There is a link there for Contact Us. It's really contact me. Well, send me a note. It brings up a form that asks for your name. Put your name in there. It asks for your email. I think it asks twice for it. And we ask twice because I'm emailing this back to you. Make sure that email is correct. It also has a subject line, and if you could put on there that this is the April 2020 Network Plus study group. And then in the body of the message on a single line by itself, please put the word netstat. We'll do netstat. Netstat. And then you could, of course, put anything else you would like in there as well in the body of the message. I'm the one reading these. So if you wanted to add a message to it, you're welcome to do so. If not, that's fine. I get plenty of requests that come through that just say netstat. That's fine too. I will send you back your email. I can't necessarily respond to all of these that I get, but I do read through all of them just so that you are aware. So netstat is your super secret code word of the month. Go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website, click Contact Us, fill out that form, put in your email, put the word netstat in there. And it takes me about a week to turn these around. Sometimes I do them on the weekend a little faster. So I will send you back an email that has been digitally signed. You'll see an attachment that is the digital signature. And the email itself is the certification that says, yes, you must have watched this because I certify that you watched this particular thing. You get 1 hour. I bequeath unto you 1 hour, ergo, in the year of our Lord, blah, 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 blah. It's not quite as formal as that, but similar to it, to have all of those things there. If in the subject line, if you'd be nice enough to put that it's the April 2020 Network Plus study group, that would be great. What I'm looking for is I go through these one at a time. So I look through it and see, what is the code word? Can I find it quickly? Is it a code word that we recently used? Sometimes people are going back years and sending me these, which is fine too. It's because that will work whether it's live or on replay. I figure out if it's right. Okay, it's April 2020. Netstat's in there. You win. I'll send you back the email. And I click a bunch of buttons and it pushes it through and sends you the email. So that's how that works. Please get those
together and get those right. We do have time for another question. Oh, wait, let's go back very quickly because some people were saying, maybe we could do this with Nmap. Hopefully you were able to see my justification, my idea behind figuring this piece out and knowing what it's going to be, that Nmap would not really be the one that would work the best to have those things. Hopefully those things are what you can work with it. Let's go through and do another question. I like this next one. Here's the next question on our list. That's a very straightforward question. Some of the questions on the exam are relatively straightforward. This is one that does ask, which of these wireless standards is associated with MU-MIMO, whatever that is? Which of these wireless standards is associated with MU-MIMO? Is it 802.11a? Is it 802.11b? Is it 802.11g? Is it 802.11n? Is it 802.11ac? Those are your 5 answers. Which of these wireless standards is associated with that particular MU-MIMO? See if you can figure out those details and know what those happen to be. I intentionally sometimes say these wrong in the question, just so some of you are wondering, doesn't he know how to properly say that? Sometimes I don't. So let's not overthink this. Sometimes I'm definitely not clued in, but sometimes I intentionally am not saying it right in order not to give too much away. Hopefully you know your wireless standards, though. Could I dedicate a video to wireless standards? What a coincidence. I do have a video dedicated to wireless standards. It's literally called Wireless Standards in the Network Plus Index. And that might help you. It steps through A, B, G, N, and AC. And then there's another one for wireless technologies, wireless network technologies, which is what this question is from. So if I had to give you a hint, there's not much of one, quite honestly. There's the hint I would give you, is that's where that's from. That's where I'm getting some of these questions from that section. I'll give you another hint, section 1.6 of your exam objectives. Not sure that's really going to help you much either, because the exam objectives they tell you need to know what that means, but it doesn't tell you in the exam objectives where that came from or what it is even. You kind of have to break that down yourself. Get it out of the book, get it out of the videos, figure out what those happen to be. Well, we've had a few people lock this one in, so let's have a look at it. Which of these wireless standards is associated with MU-MIMO? It is kind of that's usually how we say it, MU-MIMO. MU-MIMO is how it is. How'd you do on this list? 72% of you say it's 802.11ac, Alpha Charlie. 17% of you say, no, that's 802.11n is where that came from. And then effectively a three-way tie for third between A, B, and G. Although B didn't really, it's 2%. 4, 2, and 4% between A, B, and G respectively. So it's a really 72% say 802.11ac. We kind of have to go with that as the one most people are really thinking about. Now, MIMO is where we should start with this. Multiple in, multiple out. Multiple input, multiple output. It's a way to take multiple radio frequencies, stream a lot of traffic from one place to the other. Really, in this case, one set of radio frequencies. It's the same channel. It's not multiple channels. It's the same channel on our wireless access point, sending multiple signals across the same frequency. Kind of crazy. And we can send just this grouping of signals, this large amount of data from our access point. Maybe you have 4 different streams that you're sending to a laptop, and then we have 4 different streams. We have to stop and send now 4 different streams to our mobile phone. But then we got a television. It's also streaming data, so we have to stop and send 4 streams down to the television. But it's a way to kind of get these going, and we can keep all of the data going very quickly between all of them using this multiple in, multiple out. It's a way to provide much more bandwidth than would normally be available without using more frequencies, which is kind of nice. Well, with 802.11n, we introduced this MIMO, which was great to have it here. But we needed better ways to do this, because if your house is like my house, there are people needing to use their laptop, people needing to use their mobile phone, and people needing to watch television all at the same time with different types of bandwidths. And so for 802.11ac, we introduced multi-user MIMO, MU-MIMO, MU-MIMO. This is allowing us to, across the same channel, same frequencies, send multiple signals, in some cases, multiple streams of signal, to different devices simultaneously. That's like magic. And that's one of the big reasons I have an 802.11 AC access point, is I wanted to be able to support this functionality in my house for people that did not plug into the wired network. They're on wireless. They would have the most efficient way to stream and access data across the wireless network. And this assumes, of course, that they're using 802.11 AC in your television and 802.11 AC in your phone and 802.11 AC on your laptop to be able to support some of those functionalities. Great functionality to have. Multi-user MIMO. Best way to do that. That was introduced in 802.11 AC, which most of you already knew because you answered here in answer E, 802.11 AC. That would be absolutely the correct answer. MIMO itself, if you answered 802.11N, 17% of you, if we were just talking about MIMO, you got rid of the MU and you just said MIMO, you could probably choose both D and E. Both of those support a type of MIMO to have that there and be able to work through those. Obviously, A, B, and G, early versions of wireless technologies did not support any type of multiple input, multiple output. So would not be 802.11a, would not be 802.11b, it would not be 802.11g to have all of those. Hopefully that would work for you as well. So as I am talking and going through these and thinking about what's on the exam, I've mentioned to you already, make sure you have the exam objectives. It is probably the very first thing you should ever do before you start studying is getting your hands on these objectives and going through it. Should also probably be the last thing that you do before walking in the exam. It's a great checklist, and being able to check these off and making sure that it's able to, that you know that topic, you know this topic, you know that topic. You can break it down very easily to be able to see what's there. Make sure you get your hands on the objectives at professormesser.com/objectives. We also have one of these study groups every single month. Our next study group is going to be on May the 13th for Network Plus, although we have other study groups throughout the month. For example, next week at this time, we have our Security Plus study group. That will kind of finish up April for us. And in May, you can see all the different circles here. We have A Plus study groups on the 5th and 7th, a Network Plus study group on the 13th, and a Security Plus study group on the 20th. There's always something going on. Now, if you're watching this and you're well past May, you're wondering when's the next live event going to be, you can always find out. I keep it updated all the time at professormesser.com/calendar. There's also a link there in Google Calendar form, so you can add it to your Google Calendar and keep track from that way as well. You never know what's going to be. Well, it's been an hour of this already where I've been asking you questions. Let's do an after show now where I turn this around. I'm going to open up the phone lines. I'll take questions from the chat room, and we'll do some questions that way as well. So we're not quite done yet. This is the part where you get to ask me some questions. Don't forget to follow us on our favorite social networking sites. You'll get your Network Plus question of the week on Twitter and Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's always something going on there, especially with these study groups. You'll always be notified when one is happening at professormesser.com/YouTube. Don't forget about my course notes. A great way to support the site is at professormesser.com/NPCN. NPCN. It's a great way to do it. And you can support us on the Amazon, professormesser.com/Amazon, to have that there. Thanks for being with us in this first hour. Stick around for the next hour in the after show. Thank you for being here. We will see you next time on the Network Plus Study Group. Now, let me get a few things going on my side. Here we go. Hi. Hi, everybody. The question was, would I consider putting audio lectures in Spotify? All of these study group sessions are also available on your favorite streaming audio service. So you can go to Spotify right now, and you'll find all of my study groups there as well. They are all there and available. And going back years now, because I pay for a lot of storage, I guess. I guess that's how it's working. Let me get my phone lines up and running, and I will tell you how you can participate on the things that we are doing today. Let me find my Skypey. Let's start up Skypey. It's an inside joke. I know it's not Skypey.
Thank you for calling.
Well, you're welcome for me calling that. I guess I have to start my show on my side. Here, let's host a show. And let me type in a thing and push a pound sign and have it say,
enter your 60.
Well, I will. I'll enter my 6-digit PIN number, which is redundant. See if I can remember what my PIN number is. And then there's, of course, people calling me at the same time, wondering how I'm doing.
We're now in the host.
Okay. We'll have to send those folks off. I apologize for all the noises and all the things. I'm calling. There's other calls coming in. And now finally, you're able to participate. If you're in the continental United States, you can join us toll free at 855-785-RJ45. If you're don't have letters in front of you, it's 855-785-7545. If you're outside of the continental U.S., you can call us for free over Skype. You put a +1 at the beginning. It's a toll-free number, so it doesn't cost you any Skype minutes. Put a +1, 855-785-7545. So that's another good way to be able to have those there. Before we go to the live calls in the chat room, a question came through that said, which certification would I recommend, Network Plus or CCNA, and why? Well, I recommend both. But the real question is, which one should you take? That's the question. Is both of those certification exams address different requirements. They're different types of topics. It's a different level of complexity between those two. They're not a replacement for each other. They're not like for like. Those are two completely different exams. So Network Plus or CCNA, I guess it would depend on what you were trying to do. If you need your first job, you're trying to get into a help desk, you're trying to get into maybe a network operations center help desk, it's an entry-level position, and you notice on the job posting that they're specifically asking for Network Plus certification, that's the one you should take. Now, if you're trying to get into more of a networking role, you want to be a network administrator, maybe you're already at a help desk, you're trying to move over to the networking team, and you notice on their job postings, they're looking for someone who's at CCNA, well, then take the CCNA. So this is really more about where you want to be than it is which exam you should take, because they are useful for different reasons. Some people on the internet will tell you one is better than the other, one is worse than the other, don't bother with that one. But that's all in a vacuum. They aren't even taking into account, what do you want? What are your objectives? Where are you trying to be? There are some help desks that will not hire you if you have a CCNA because you would be overqualified for the help desk. So that's one of those situations where you need to find out in your mind what you're trying to do and then focus on those things. So that's a really important thing to consider as you're stepping through and trying to figure out, where do I go? Try to figure out where you want to be first, and it should point you in the right direction. Be very obvious at that point where you should go with those things. Let's go to the phone lines. Area code 915. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, Professor.
Hi. What's your question?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you great.
I just wanted to say I had two questions, so I will break them down for you.
Please.
My first question was, there's one more thing I want to mention. I want to thank you for your online support. Like, I've been watching you from my 900 series from A+ for my first
Old school.
Core 1 and Core 2. I really want to thank you. I passed those two because of your help, and now I'm taking Network Plus.
Great.
And my two questions were, I have two devices in my home which are trying to, like, I have a PlayStation and a PC, and my brother-in-law uses his PC for gaming too, and I use my PlayStation for gaming. So right now I'm facing a problem which says my game is using a port number 3075 UDP and TCP, and his game is using the same port. Now, we both cannot game at the same time,
right,
because, and I was thinking if there is a solution for it.
Well, that is a little bit of a problem. Well, obviously, when we're gaming, a lot of these gaming
systems, a lot of the gaming technologies that are communicating to us need to talk directly to our PC or need to talk directly to our console, Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo. Those devices are on the inside of your network. So to be able to talk to your device, it either has to tell your router through UPnP that it needs to open up a port to allow access in. In many cases, if that's the only device on the inside of your network, that process works fine. Or many people will manually configure their router to perform that port forwarding process to be able to get that traffic to go inside of your network. And the way that it works is that people from the outside, when they want to talk to your computer, they would talk to your external IP address. The router does a network address translation and sends it down to you, which works great unless somebody else needs to have exactly the same type of access using exactly the same port numbers and have that all happen at the same time. That means the incoming traffic doesn't know where to go. It would have no way to do that. So you can't have two devices on the inside having that particular situation. And you're seeing that when you've got these two games or two services that need to be able to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
One thing that could work better if the service that you're running supports it is if you can change the port number of what that happens to be. That's one thing that might help. With many of these games, however, you can't change that. It's locked in. It has to talk to that port number. There's no option. And in those particular situations, there's not much you can do to be able to make that work properly. I guess if you are really desperate to make that work, you could try some different things on the outside. Could you double NAT? You probably still couldn't do that because it's still trying to come in with that same IP address. That would not help you either. So no, you run into a situation where it becomes almost impossible to have something like that work properly because the people on the outside don't know what's happening on the inside of your network. You're in pretty bad shape if that's one that you're trying to get both of those working at the same time, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You said there was another question?
So yes. And my other question was, right now I have A+, and I was getting my Network+, and my ultimate goal is to be a network into network management.
Great.
And I was thinking, since I don't have an entry level job, I should get Network+ and then go for CCNA. Is that how you would suggest I should do? Or
it might be, or it might not be. It really depends on the employer. A lot of people who are hiring people for a network operations center, if it's a large company and they have more than just a help desk, they have a network operations center, they have a security operations center, a SOC. So they might have a corporate help desk, they might have a NOC, they might have a SOC, they might have one thing that handles all of those at the same time. Or if it's a really, really large company, these may actually be separate independent entities within the same company. The people that would get you into an entry-level position in a NOC might appreciate that you have a CCNA and would say, well, if you're somebody who has CCNA knowledge, let's bring you in right now into our NOC, and then we'll teach you the things you need to know from there, even though you may not have any practical experience. If you're going into a corporate help desk environment where you're primarily working with operating systems, you're doing password changes, it's sort of the typical entry-level experience at a help desk, then a CCNA could possibly scare off an employer from hiring you because they may think you're too qualified to work at a help desk. So you do have to be careful with some of these higher level certifications. I say CCNA is a higher level, but it is when compared to Network+. The CCNA is a relatively complex certification. You have to know a lot to earn that certification. It's not an easy one to get through, and I wouldn't consider it entry level. Then that's one where you may want to change your resume a bit depending on who you're talking to and what they're looking for. That's why I often tell people, make sure you really understand the job posting, that you really understand what that employer is looking for on the job posting, because they're going to tell you, here's what we would like to see. And if they say, we want to see somebody with CCNA, then you can shout it from the mountaintops and say, I have my CCNA. But if they say, we'd like you to have a Network+, maybe you don't talk about the CCNA so much. Maybe you wait until you get into a meeting especially if you already have your Network Plus. And then you could say, well, I have my CCNA as well. I've been doing these things. Here's what my home lab looks like. Here's the things that I've done in Packet Tracer. Here's some interesting things I've worked on. And then you can kind of get a feel from them if that's something that works well for them or not. Or you can ask them, is that too much? Do you not want somebody in your help desk who has CCNA? Even though I don't have practical experience, I think it would help me learning a lot of the networking things. And if you need me to learn things about Microsoft or about Linux or about the other things, I'm more than willing to do that. It might be a couple of things you can work through to be able to figure that out, but you kind of have to take a temperature, kind of have to feel the room out and see what people are looking for, because there is always a concern that you're going to be overqualified. Some people don't even consider that, but that's a real thing. And employers don't want to hire somebody that they'll put into a job who's going to be bored. If you're a CCNA quality person and they stick you on a help desk swapping out people's passwords, you're not going to stay very long, and the investment of time that they're making is not going to work very well for them. It may not be the best fit for what they're looking for. In the end, that might be the best answer for both of you. But at the current time, getting a paycheck may be the best thing for you. So you have to measure that out as well. That's where I would balance that out if I were you.
The only problem I'm facing is that I couldn't get an entry-level job. Currently, I'm working as a merchandiser at Best Buy, and I remember you told me that you should always look inside the corporate you're working already. I know Best Buy has Geek Squad support, so I was thinking to apply there. I did apply there, but they didn't hire me because I didn't have enough certifications, I guess.
Could have been.
That's what I think. I did get back to them, but they were like, you need to have more experience. But then again, it comes to the loop again where I can't get experience unless someone hires me.
Right.
And then I'm like, okay, I should just go and get some more certifications, I guess.
This is another situation, though, that might help if you get to know the people that are working over in the Geek Squad a little better. There's obviously a lot of them over there, and you can find out from them. Ask one of them. It doesn't have to be the hiring manager. What would you recommend I get? Should I go get my A+? Should I get a Network Plus? Should I get a CCNA? What would work best for the things that you are doing to fix these problems that you're running into, that customers are bringing their equipment in and need you to fix? I would imagine A+ would be a big one for what they're doing, because I'm sure they're dealing with tons of virus problems, operating system upgrades, hard drive migrations, the things you would typically think about that people really need help on their home computers with. I think the other piece that would be good is to get to know them and get them to understand what you know about these things. That might help too, because if you are talking to them about a SSD upgrade that you did and you migrated over a operating system and you ran into a problem and you just run it by them, what do you think? Did I do everything right on this one? Did I not do something right? How can I make this go easier next time? And get the conversation going with them. They might think, oh, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. He's already replaced his own equipment. He's already got the upgrade going. He's already worked with Windows. He's got a Linux system going. He's got a home lab or whatever you happen to have. Those things would be useful as well. Get the relationships going. We often talk about learning the network, which is all the protocols and the binary piece of it. But you also have to think about the other network, which is the people network. You need to also get a relationship going with people that you will need to know throughout your entire career so that you will continue to get that job or get that better job. Very often, we don't hire what people know. We hire who they know. That's a real thing. We often say that, but it is a real thing. If you already trust that person, you're really going to trust them to be able to be an employee as well. So keep working on those things. And maybe once we get back to having local user group meetings, you can go to a Microsoft user group meeting, a Cisco user group meeting, and do even more networking and get on more people's LinkedIn and make sure that you're handing out more copies of your resume. You never know where these things are going to lead. You just have to keep going. It's one of those situations where it's always a failure until you get that job. Then suddenly, what a successful solution that we ran into. What a successful set of things we did to finally get this job. Just keep persevering. Keep doing it over and over and over again. It will eventually get you to that position, and then you'll be able to skyrocket.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Professor. That was my only question. Those were the only questions I had.
You're in great shape. Best of luck. Thanks for calling.
Thank you.
That's one whenever I have to, we go through these same things every time you're trying to look for a job in this industry. You're trying to get from place A to place B. It's maybe not even your first job. Maybe it's your second job, your third job, your 10th job in this industry. Speaking of someone who I think I had 10 jobs, maybe more than that in this industry, that is one that does come into mind. You have to go back to your LinkedIn. You keep track of where all these people are that you worked with. I've managed to get a number of jobs. I think I got every job I got except for the first one. The first one, I didn't know anybody who worked there. Every job I got after that, I knew someone who worked there. That's valuable. I knew maybe it was a casual acquaintance, or it was somebody you see a lot when you're working, or it's somebody that you actually met and really knew personally. But almost always it was a professional relationship. It wasn't like you hung out on the weekends and your kids went to the same school. It was just someone you knew professionally. You'd see them when you walked in every Wednesday to take care of the printer maintenance. You said, hi, how you doing? Hey, I noticed you got a new coat of paint in here, brightened up the place. Any questions? Anything else I can do for you? See you next week. And they remember that when you go back in and say, hey, I've been looking around for a job. Any openings here? And they go, oh, we need somebody like you working here. Yes, we can find a place. And those things happen. Make sure you are always thinking along those lines. Back to phone lines, 412 area code. Thanks for holding for so long. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from? Well, it seemed to be an obvious one when you step through trying to figure out the next caller on the list. 828 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Tyler from Asheville.
Hey, Tyler. What can we do for you?
Hey, so I guess on your last thing, just real quick, it is really helpful to network. I found some IT director on LinkedIn. I connected with him, and he thought that was impressive with my initiative. And he's pretty much told me, as soon as you get a cert, I'll give you a job.
Wow, it's like cold called. You just cold send him a note on LinkedIn with no other introduction. Hey, I saw you on LinkedIn. I'm in the market for a position. Did you ask a specific question of him? Were you asking, what are you guys looking for? What should I be doing? How'd you approach him?
So I sent in my application to the job I wanted, and I just happened to be on LinkedIn, and I saw that he was connected with that IT department. So yeah, I was kind of cold blasting it. I thought maybe he would find it creepy or maybe aggressive, but he actually really liked it. And he said, you seem like you really want this. He had me in for 2 interviews, but he said, I just need to see a certification. So I'm under kind of a time crunch to get to a certification. My question for you
what a horrible time to be under a time crunch to get a cert. Okay, fire away. Let's see what we can do for you.
Yeah. So he says, so I don't know how deeply to study the topic. So for example, if one of the objectives is OSPF, do I just need to be just know the basics of OSPF, or do I need to be all out expert, know how to troubleshoot every aspect of it, or am I wasting my time going that deeply into it?
Well, are you referring specifically to the Network Plus exam objectives, or are you referring to something else entirely?
Well, I'm aiming for the Network Plus first.
Okay.
And then I'll move up from there. But I don't know, like, if I know how to troubleshoot an LSR algorithm, is that moving more into the CCNP or CCN or the IE, or should I just stay with the basics?
Fortunately, they give you a little bit of a clue on the exam objectives themselves. OSPF is specifically in a section 1.3, and the high-level explanation of 1.3 is explain the concepts and characteristics of routing and switching. So already they're at a very high level and the very broad understanding of what you should know. And then they list properties of network traffic, broadcast domains, CSMA-CD, CSMA-CA, collision domains, protocol data units, MTU, broadcast, multicast, unicast. They have all these different technologies listed
it's a very big section, 1.3 of the exam objectives. The one that specifically has OSPF on it is routing. They want you to know routing protocols, IPv4 and IPv6, such as distance vector, link state, and hybrid. And then they list under those three areas. Under distance vector, they list RIP and EIGRP. Under link state, they list OSPF. And under hybrid, they list BGP. So the only reference to OSPF in the exam objectives is how it is associated with link state routing protocols, and that's it. They don't go into any more detail. They don't talk about areas. They don't talk about routing tables. They don't talk about RIFs. They don't talk about anything relating to OSPF. And they don't go into the detail that the CCNA used to do. They still do to some degree, which is figuring out which routes are more important than other routes, and the prioritization of those, and then route redistribution. It doesn't even go anywhere into that. All they want to know is from the perspective of distance vector, link state, and hybrid, where does OSPF fit? And then in my video, I gave you a little bit of high level. What the heck's OSPF anyway? Why? What is that? If you heard OSPF, I need to know what that is. Maybe it helps to know open shortest path first. Maybe that helps that I know what the acronym is, but it also helps to know that that's a routing protocol. It's used in these scenarios. You'll commonly see it on the inside of the network or the outside of the network. You'll commonly see it used for this type of thing. And that's it. As far as the Network Plus is concerned, that is as much detail as you need to know for OSPF. That's probably even more than you would need to know. They're really talking into the specifics of knowing between distance vector, link state, and hybrid. But since it's there, it's nice to get a little bit more insight than just those things. Try to follow kind of the high-level view of the exam objectives. If they don't specifically ask for a technical detail like that, you can rightly assume that they aren't asking you to know that technical detail. When you get into other concepts like, let's find a good one here. So, on wireless networking technologies, they ask you to know the standards, A, B, G, N, and AC. Then they want you to know frequencies. They want you to know speed and distance requirements. They want you to know channel bandwidth. They want you to know what channel bonding is. They want you to know MIMO and MU-MIMO. They want you to know unidirectional versus omnidirectional antennas. They want you to know what site surveys are. So they kind of spell out for you what level of detail you need to know for these different types of technologies. Notice they didn't go anywhere close to that level of detail with OSPF. All they said was OSPF. So, okay, you don't have to go deep.
Gotcha.
Just have to get that top layer, get an understanding of what it is, and you can keep it moving.
Right. So just get those exam objectives.
Those are. I know I've only said it 20,000 times already, this individual study group, and I do it every time because it's so important. It is the watchword for the exam. It really does. They stick very, very close to these exam objectives for the exam itself, and they're a great checklist to go through. And if you can check off everything in these exam objectives, you're ready for the exam.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time, and I appreciate you helping out our study group.
What a great story, too. Let us know how that goes, Tyler.
I will. Thanks.
Not a bad approach. You send in a resume, perhaps even a resume or for a job that was posted on LinkedIn. Do a LinkedIn search for the IT manager for that particular company. Say, hey, I just sent in my resume for this position. Are there other things I should be looking for? What other things would you guys like to see in somebody who's applying for these things? Is there anything on my resume you would like to see me add to this? In this case, the person said, well, yeah, get a certification put on there too, and you'd be a great candidate. What a not bad thing to do. This is why we have LinkedIn, though. Don't worry that people on LinkedIn don't want you to contact them. They have a LinkedIn account. Of course, they want someone to contact them. Especially, as I mentioned, LinkedIn is a big way to find people. An employer would much rather find you themselves than to have to pay for somebody to send you their resume, because then they have to pay a recruiter. They have to pay them big money. It's much better if you contact them personally and be able to make that happen. I think that would be a great way to go about understanding all of those things that you run into, especially LinkedIn. And LinkedIn's a great tool. If you're in the industry, we all use LinkedIn extensively. And if you don't have a good LinkedIn page already, that would be a good thing to work on right now. Get your LinkedIn page up and running. I know that you don't know a lot of people. I know that you don't have a lot of industry experience to put there. That's okay. There are people, though, you know in your class, you know your teachers, you know there are people you can start adding and make it your professional public persona of you. This is not Facebook. It's not Twitter. It's something where professionally, where can you reside? And if you approach LinkedIn that way, it will be a valuable tool for you to use your entire career. I've been able to keep track of people that I worked with 20 years ago, and I know what they've done. And there have been times when I've been working for a place and I thought, you know who'd be really good for this open position in Chicago is that person I used to know in Chicago. And I'd send them a LinkedIn message saying, just saw this. If you're interested, go and apply. You'd be perfect for it. You know, those are great things. And it's a great way to find the right fit as well. Back to the phone calls. Thank you for holding so long. 509 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, my name's Andrew, calling from Washington.
Hi, Andrew.
I was curious if there's any specific resources you'd recommend that covers the differences between the 901 and 902 exams to the newer 1001, 1002 exams for the A+. So I got a book for 901, but obviously going to take the exam pretty soon.
Right. And you've probably seen there's quite a bit of differences between the 901 and 902. It's not a complete difference. It's not 100% difference between those two. But there are some, I calculated about 20 to 22% of the topics on the 1001 and the 1002 are brand new from the 900 series exams. So if you're reading a 900 series book, there will be 20% of the exam content that you would just have never seen before because it's not in the book you have now, which is a pretty big number. But one of the things that you can do, and I understand people, you know, you don't have a lot of cash on hand. Maybe there are no books you can get to be able to help you through this. So you want to kind of find the delta. You want to find out what is new on the 1001 and the 1002 that perhaps you don't know about currently. Well, if you go to the link, I've mentioned this earlier a million times already on the study group, professormesser.com/objectives. Not only is there a link there that redirects you to the exam objective page on the CompTIA website, there are also two other links on this page. One that will show you the 1001 A+ objectives that highlight all of the changes since the 900 series. So if you go through the 220-1001, under mobile devices, section 1.1, there are two things highlighted, cellular card and video card. Those are the only two things that were added since the 900 series. If we keep scrolling down, section 1.4, which talks about mobile devices, VR and AR headsets was added. But all the other things are in your 900 series book. Under section 1.5, micro USB and mini USB are there, but USB-C is not in your 900 series book, and it is in the 1001. So you can go through this whole list and effectively just kind of Google everything that's not in your book, and you would have a pretty good delta from what you have in your official 900 series book, plus all the things you would need to know for your 1000 series exams.
Yeah, that's super good. Okay, yeah. I was looking at the objectives on the CompTIA website, and it's a pretty big block of text, so it's kind of hard to sort through. That's awesome that you do that.
I have to sort through them because I have to make the videos. So I figured since I'm already sorting them out and I'm already trying to find what should I be making new, I just sort of listed it out on my website for everybody to be able to use as well. And maybe that can help you for both the 1001 and the 1002 exams.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Andrew. Best of luck. That's always a challenge. You got this book. It's a perfectly good book. 80% of the content of the book is good. And you got that 20% that you got to work on, and that's where it came from. To the 240 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, Professor. My name is Jose. I'm calling from Maryland.
Oh, thanks for calling. What's your question?
Oh, yeah. So real quickly, I just want to say you are amazing. You helped me get my A+.
Oh.
I'm so grateful.
Congratulations.
And yeah. So as a college student currently, so like my last semester in class, I was taking a networking course, and that pertained to the CCNA. And then currently, my second semester, I'm taking a class that's about the CCNA, and I'm learning about OSPF, and all the Cisco proprietary commands.
Great.
And I'm already engraved with the EN, CompTIA, and then so I was just wondering if like I should actually spend more time and take the certification since I'm already doing all this VLSM and all this, or should I just continue to like focus on my studies and just like wait it off a little bit?
One of the things, I guess it kind of goes back to what is it you want to do. Although if you're in college right now, this is one of those situations where you'll do whatever they would like you to do when you get out of college. But if networking, and it sounds like networking is something that interests you because you've already taken what used to be the CCNT. Now everything is just the CCNA exam. And you've already gone through the process of learning all these commands and knowing how to get into enable mode and knowing how to make the changes and going into the configure interface and knowing how to make all of those routing configurations and switch configurations and be able to, if you lose the password, what do you do? If you need to connect via the serial port, what do you do? You've already gone through all of this. That's the hardest part of the Cisco exams. And it's a valuable set of skills to know when you get into the industry because those types of methods that you use to be able to do these things are the same, whether it's a Cisco, it's a similar configuration on a Checkpoint, a Palo Alto Network firewall. It's a similar configuration on Juniper equipment. It's obviously the text and the syntax is a little different, but the concept is the same. And by the way, once you know how OSPF works, you know how OSPF works on everybody's equipment. Once you know how spanning tree works, you know how spanning tree works on everybody's equipment. So getting the knowledge of those fundamentals is also extremely valuable. I would say if you've now gone through all of this process of learning it, you've gone through all this process of running through the packet tracer or working in a lab with live equipment, and you really understand it at that command line prompt, go get your Cisco certification. It can't hurt you. All it can do is give you an option if you're going into interview that you might want to tell people, I have the Cisco certification if they're looking for it, or at least you can say that I'm knowledgeable in the networking side so that you can get maybe an entry-level position without scaring anybody off with the knowledge that you already have. And it certainly positions you well for the future because, as I've mentioned before, if you want to get into server administration, Linux, databases, data centers, or security, you're going to need to know about networking. And there's really no better place to get that knowledge of networking these days than those Cisco certifications.
All right. Thank you so much.
I appreciate the call. Best of luck with that. You're on the right track.
Thanks. Take care.
What a good thing to know also, you're in college, you're working through these things. What a great place to be and having that knowledge there ready to go. It's sometimes more difficult to get these certifications once you're out of college because you've got the day job. You're working all day in your job. You're coming home. There's home responsibilities. There's a family. There's money issues associated with this. When you're in college, you've got a little bit more free time available. It's a perfect time to start getting these certifications under your belt. And if it's something that interests you, it's fun. Setting up a lab and working inside a packet tracer, I find a lot of fun. Maybe I'm just weird that way. Well, okay, I am weird that way, but it's exciting to me. Oh, I have a question. Does it work this way or that way? Let's build it. Let's put some switches in. Let's put some routes in. We'll get the routing protocols. We'll put it in slow-mo mode. We'll watch the packet as it goes from device to device. We'll capture the packets and look at them in a packet trace. Those things are incredibly interesting to me. So that's what, if you're somebody that's incredibly interesting to you as well, why not take advantage of that? It's going to translate into more money in your pocket, a larger salary down the road, if not now. So why not do something like that? Be a great way to go about trying to make the most of this. Some of us are at home now and we do have more time. We're not driving to work every day. We don't have to be on the roads for hours at a time. We got a couple hours of our life back. Why not use that time to learn what we need to learn to get that certification we've been working on? So that would be something to think about. Questions from the chat room. There was a question, do I work for CompTIA? I do not. I work for myself. You are talking to an employee of Messer Studios. That is the company that I founded, and this is what we do. We make training materials for people to get a job or get a better job. That's it.
I'm not a CompTIA partner. I don't have a professional connection to CompTIA. I know some people who work there. I have talked to CompTIA in the past. We have worked together on certain projects in the past, but I am not in any way associated with CompTIA. I do not speak for them. They do not speak for me. It's just something I'm completely independent, and I prefer being that way. That way, if CompTIA is doing something that perhaps I don't like, I can say it. If they do something I do like, I can say it. And it doesn't matter either way to me because I'm not in any way contractually obligated to do anything with them. So that part's nice. And you know when you're talking to me, and if I say something about them, that there's not somebody who's back there worrying about our contractual agreements and what I am saying. I think I'm also fair, and I think in most cases CompTIA does a fine job with what they're doing, or I would not be creating training materials that would help people get that job or get that better job. In the past, I think right now on my website is only CompTIA, and some people were asking about this in the chat room, is that in the past I've had Microsoft training, Cisco training. I'm not exclusive to CompTIA, and I would love to do some other types of training outside the scope of that. And I think in the future you'll see some of that. But I'm one person. Right now I'm on this live stream, so I'm not writing new content at the moment. I have to get off of this, get the replays done, get those posted to Spotify and all those other places. Then I can work on some of the third-party stuff I am working on. But it is on my list. I have an enormous list. It is not all about CompTIA. It's also about other things as well. Some of you in the past have known I've had CCENT, the Cisco course notes. There's some Cisco Q&A that I've done in the past. I'd love to update those for the latest version of CCNA. So that's on my list as well to be able to get those, to see what those happen to be. The way that this usually works in being able to have content available is I like to create it all myself. So some of you want to see more content faster. I wish I could make it faster. It's right now. How fast can I get these things done and make those things happen? That's why it works that way. Before we go back to the phone calls, there was another question about, and we mentioned this earlier, is CompTIA on the 15th, they've said that they will start doing testing at home. So they will have a way that you can take a CompTIA exam in the comfort of your own home. So that's one where there are advantages and disadvantages to this. And I've said if you can wait and take your exam in a proper testing center where you don't have to worry about setting up the environment, you don't have to worry about getting software running properly on your computer and not conflicting with other things that you have running. You don't have to worry about your system blue screening in the middle of it because of the software that's running. You don't have to worry about your internet connection going out, which I don't know what they do in those situations. You don't have to worry about making sure your room is in a position, in a place where it is. And as they say, I looked through the things that you have to agree to. If the person monitoring you over the video and audio thinks that they hear anyone else in your room or near where you happen to be, they can immediately fail you on the exam without even seeing someone. They just think that there may be someone else there. They can legitimately, you've agreed to this, immediately fail you on the exam, and you would have to pay more money to take the exam again. And there are some people on the internet who have had bad experiences along those lines. I don't think it's quite as harsh as the description I'm saying, but the agreement that you have written allows it to be that harsh. So it's questionable as to what it's not what I'm saying. It's not a perfect environment to do testing in. There are some caveats, and as long as you understand what those caveats are, it's going to work fine for you. There, as we mentioned, there's some people that have called today. They need to get this happening right now. They have a job waiting on this cert. So yes, get that in. Set up the environment. Do this a day before. Set up the environment where you're going to have this here. Make sure that's going to happen. Get all those things in place. Eventually, all of these issues that we're in right now with dealing with whatever this is that we're dealing with right now, all of this is going to go away probably shortly in the relatively length of these things. We're not going to be doing this for months on end, but we'll be able to go back to a testing center. We'll be able to go back to a restaurant. We'll be able to go back to the movies. We'll be able to go back to normalcy. And when that happens, go back to your testing center and make that happen. But if you're short of time, there's a pressing need, you're geographically not able to visit a testing center, absolutely take advantage of their online testing. It's a great idea to be able to get through there. One thing I saw, and I'm not sure how they're going to manage this, and it's something to keep in mind, is one of their requirements that I read for OnView for other companies, because they already do this from Microsoft and other companies. One of the things they say is you can't have anything to write on. So I don't know if CompTIA will also do the same thing, if they will make it online if there's nothing you can write on. If that's the case, it's actually a little bit of a disadvantage than going to a testing center, because a testing center will give you usually a laminated sheet of paper and a whiteboard pen to be able to write with. But at home, you may not have that flexibility. So that's something to think about. Another one of those things. It's never perfect at home. Having the perfect environment to do these things, as you've already seen, I feel like I have the perfect environment. I have built a room. I literally built a building just to do this and have a studio. But even in the middle of this, my phone goes off. So that's never one of those situations you want to be in. In fact, did I ever turn off the ringer? One of those to have there. So that's one of those where you can work through. Imagine being in an environment where you don't have the flexibility. Some people do this in their bathroom. They take a laptop in because nobody can come in. It's a closed-in environment. There's no televisions. That's the real problem, isn't it? Is making sure that there's nothing there that could make a proctor think that you're cheating in any way, and having that there. A little bit of an issue. Let's go back to the phones real quick. The 310 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Or 301, sorry.
Hey, Professor Lesser. This is Max from Maryland.
Hey, Max. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
So, obviously, given the circumstances, I've been home, and something told me to just cut your videos on, and I'm glad I learned that on April 15th that you can start testing from home again.
Oh, yeah.
Give you a little bit of a background about myself. I work in AV, and what I've noticed is all our conference rooms are on the network, and so it's kind of intriguing me to start, learning more about the network. And so I was interested and kind of wanted to transition into the networking engineering side or telecom. So I was wondering if Network Plus would be a good way to start and moving into that direction.
It might be. There's an AV, I'm assuming you're referring to audio, visual, and not antivirus?
Yeah,
okay.
Audio, visual.
Because having worked for McAfee before, I used to be a network associate systems engineer. So AV to us was antivirus. You're right. And those worlds they're blending together very, very quickly these days. There's so much network connectivity, and technically HDMI is a network topology that you can send Ethernet traffic over. And a lot of the higher end AV equipment networks in ways between those, either Ethernet or through HDMI or through other methods as well. And we're seeing more and more of those. And when you get into matrix switching, and there's just so many different networking technologies that are behind the scenes of AV, especially the higher end audio and visual. It's a perfect place to segue into networking, I would think. And in some ways, I would think that you're sort of in the same place. The network cables are in the wall. You're putting this equipment in the wall. There's value in being able to understand the basics at the physical level, and to some degree, the connectivity, the IP addressing that is used for some of these things can be very, very useful as well. So that's a fantastic segue into the networking world. You're going to have to go farther into this, because once you get into networking, you're really talking about routing and switching. You're talking about a much more knowledgeable and much higher level set of networking that deals with VLANs and redundancy and spanning tree and routing tables and IP subnetting. There's a whole world of things associated with that. Network Plus would be a great place to start if you're trying to figure out where to go there. And getting some of the relationships that you have in the industry, you're probably working with people that are on the technical side, that are putting in these conference rooms, that are putting in these smart boards, that are putting in the systems. You're already working with the IT departments. Build those relationships, because you will want to go back to them. One of the first jobs I got in a corporate environment was because I worked for a computer store, And I was responsible for showing up on site at this place and taking care of monitors that had died, replacing hard drives that have failed, installing new memory into a system. It was the very basics of basic IT work. But I was able to go to them after I'd known them for 9 months. And I said, I'm looking around for another job. Do you have openings in your help desk? And they said, absolutely. We already know your skills. We've already worked with you. We know that you've been doing kind of lower level stuff. We'll train you on everything else. We know that you're a good fit here because we've already worked with you. We know that you have some technical knowledge because we've seen what you can do. Now we need to teach you about mainframes. We need to teach you about network operating systems. We need to teach you about Windows. We need to teach you about email. And we can teach you that piece of it because we see that you're someone who has the capability to learn these things. So absolutely get some knowledge on the networking side. Absolutely start working through the relationships you have. As I mentioned earlier, if you don't have a LinkedIn, get that LinkedIn page going. Start asking people, hey, can I send you a LinkedIn and get you on my LinkedIn? Get those networks going on the people side as well. And you'll be surprised how easily it may be for you to move from one type of work into doing a completely different kind altogether.
Man, thank you so much. Thank you.
Best of luck, Max.
All right, definitely.
Oh, there, cut him off. I'm so sorry, Max. But thanks. I do appreciate the call. It's one of those things where when it gets down to it, we talk all about technology. We talk about the bits and bytes. We talk about the protocols. But at the end of the day, it's really about human beings talking to each other. It's about solving a problem so that we can do something at a human level. Whenever I'm working in my email, I'm not going to email so that I can learn how to use email or that I can send an electronic message to somebody. I'm trying to communicate to them. I'm trying to solve a problem or create an opportunity for something that they're trying to do. So whenever I kind of break out and tell people, learn the technology, I want to make sure people also learn about what other people are looking for as well. I know I've said LinkedIn here a couple of times. That seems to be the best place to go in our industry to do this. There are obviously advantages and disadvantages to using LinkedIn, but what a great place to get your professional group of people together in one place and be able to communicate back and forth to them very, very, very easily. LinkedIn has done a very good job of setting that up and allowing us to do it. And it's remarkable the opportunities that you can find on LinkedIn just by doing a little bit of research and gathering those details. So that's what I would recommend you do is work on the technical side, but don't forget about the people side, because very often that is probably the even more important part of working in the IT world is really working with people. And the better you work with people, you'll find the easier it is for you to move up and do whatever you'd like in your career. Let's go to 469. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm Sean, and I'm calling from the Dallas area,
Sean,
Texas.
Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Kind of along the same lines as the previous caller, and regarding the Network Plus certificate, I currently have an A Plus certification. I got my Security Plus before Network Plus, and I'm looking at getting into cybersecurity. Right now, I'm a software engineer, and I wanted to know how important the Network Plus cert might be for that type of industry.
Well, I can tell you from the perspective of somebody who's worked in the cybersecurity industry. I worked as a systems engineer at what was McAfee. At the time, it was Network Associates. Learned my firewalling, intrusion prevention, antivirus, and kind of the corporate management of all of those things, and then transitioned from there into Palo Alto Networks as a next generation firewall systems engineer, and working with companies all over the country and designing and implementing security solutions to solve the problems that they were trying to solve. I can tell you the networking piece of it is a huge part of security. Everything we do from an IT security perspective has an enormous foundation of networking underneath it. And let me give you an example of some of the things that I would do as a systems engineer on a next generation firewall is that I had to know how to implement this next generation firewall in redundant modes. We were usually in these larger organizations. They would have two firewalls. one that was active and one that was passive, although sometimes they would run two firewalls in what we would call active-active mode, where both firewalls were operating simultaneously. There were obviously different ways to implement those from an IP routing perspective versus an versus a switching perspective for both of those. And then how do you configure your network to roll over to the proper working firewall should one of those fail? Are you implementing those in an environment where you have IPsec tunnels? You have these encrypted tunnels to third parties. These are also tunnels that are only going to send that traffic if it's being routed properly on the firewall. So there's a huge routing system and routing knowledge that you would need to be able to do that. Sometimes it's done with static routes. Sometimes it's done with dynamic routing. Sometimes you would have to do route redistribution on the firewall. Sometimes your firewall was set up with multiple virtual routers inside of it. And for each of those, each virtual router would have its own routing table, in some cases doing its own type of route redistributions. So all of those things are what I had to do just to get the firewall installed. And as you've noticed, I've not even talked about the security part of it yet. There's a whole set of security policies, being able to identify malicious traffic flows, being able to restrict traffic based on applications. That's later. I just need the networking knowledge to be able to implement this thing properly. And if I didn't have that foundational knowledge of networking, there's no way I would even get to the part where we talked about the IT security. So that's why I tell people, if you want to get into security, spend as much time as you can learning as much as you can about the networking side of things. If you have a strong foundation in switching, you have a strong foundation in routing, and a strong foundation in operating systems, you will go very far on the IT security side, but you almost can't even start in IT security or cybersecurity until you get those foundational topics down and become what effectively is an expert in those things, so that you can then apply that towards the security side of things. That would be my recommendation for you. It sounds like you've got some experience kind of on the computer science side, on the programming side, and there may be some security opportunities that deal only on the programming side. In that case, networking isn't really the key there. Cybersecurity sort of has a very broad scope. But if you're talking about IT security, a foundational knowledge of the networking piece will take you very, very far, Sean.
Okay. Yeah, I'm currently in college going back for my bachelor's in cybersecurity, and one of the options was Network Plus or ethical hacking, the ECIH certification to take next. And I was debating which one of those I should take next to try to get into the field.
It's one of those situations where you're going to have to crawl before you can get up and start running. And although I think the ethical hacking and kind of the hacking certs, they're sexy. They are very attractive. They sound awesome, and it's the things you see in the movies, and it is good knowledge to know. There's value in the exam objectives that they offer. And knowing Nmap and knowing intrusion prevention and understanding that foundational security knowledge is important, but you're not able to take advantage of that until you get the networking piece down. If you're running an Nmap scan, how do you even know what IP range to run the Nmap scan on unless you have some knowledge of IP? So everything builds on itself. If I was going to move into security, I would recommend starting on the networking side. You can always take the certified ethical hacker or any type of security cert after that case. But having that knowledge of networking is going to not only be valuable to get into security, it's going to effectively differentiate you from other people who are also trying to get into the security role. And given the number of jobs that are available and the number of people who need good security people, you're going to want to position yourself as well as possible. I think the networking knowledge allows you to do that.
Okay, this is all great information. I do thank you for your time.
Thanks for the call. I appreciate it. It's one of those where it's almost you don't realize just how much networking is on the IT security side. It's a huge amount. And of course, it goes so far beyond that as well. It goes beyond the network side of things. You, of course, need knowledge on the security side. You need some knowledge about how these firewalls operate under the surface. You need to understand how an IPsec tunnel is built. because it's the same process on everybody's technologies. And very often you're connecting one manufacturer's device to another manufacturer's device to build an IPsec tunnel between them. Unless you understand the fundamentals of that, you can't talk the language of what both sides needs to know to be able to get that up and running, because there are nuances associated with those depending on where those things are. Cisco talks and expects different things than Palo Alto Network expects, but you still have to make them talk to each other. And there's advantages, disadvantages, limitations depending on what you're connecting to. Sometimes it works out great and easy. Sometimes it's not so easy, but there are ways you can figure it out if you happen to know the fundamentals of IPsec, how the phase 1 process works, how the phase 2 process works, and then how you tell if the tunnel is up and running to begin with. That is incredibly important to have that there. There was another question in here. Some other folks were asking if this was all. We were talking about what I was doing. Do I work for CompTIA? I do not. I work for myself. Yes, this is all I do. This is an all day, every day. I say I work half days, 8 to 8. It's actually 8 to whatever. It's 8 to whenever I'm done. But this is my only thing that I do. I do not have a day job. This is my day and night job of what I do. So it's one of those that's worked out very well. Now, I say that, but I have had this company for about 14 years now. We can go back to the 600 series of A+, when we really made it into a company. And really, we were doing work before that, where I was working during the day for, like I mentioned already, Network Associates, Palo Alto Networks. I was working for them during the day. And then at night, this is when I would put together the things that you see now, the training courses and the other materials. And eventually that just evolved into, I really should be doing this full time. That's where that happened with. But I was I guess the last job I had was at Palo Alto Networks. I was there almost 7 years. And I think I've been doing this about 4 to 5 years now alone, just as my only job. Not alone. There's other people that help me with this, but this is what we do now. This is what I am doing. So that's where that came from, and have those things there. So if you need to get in touch with me, I'm sitting here doing things in this studio when the camera is not on, building more content, making more videos. There's more Network Plus pop quizzes coming to the website. I want to add some videos for those things. There's more there to be able to work through and have those there. So in the chat room, other folks asking, I had to cancel my 1002 CompTIA A+ exam. Am I telling you that CompTIA will let you take it, Pearson VUE specifically, will let you take it at home? CompTIA, yes, has announced that on the 15th, in fact, I'll go to the CompTIA website right now, and you can see that they are mentioned right on the front of the website, new online testing. Exam takers concerned about test center closures will be able to take CompTIA exams from home starting April 15th. Let's learn more. And they have a whole page that tells you they're planning to start on April 15th, 2020. So hopefully soon. Will let us know when that's going to happen. I imagine it'll be very, very busy to have all of these things happening at CompTIA. So you may want to get something scheduled as soon as possible. I predict right there at the beginning, everybody's going to want to get these things done at home. You don't want to be waiting a month or two. By that point, you can just take it to a testing center and do that. Will they continue the home testing after we are done with our lockdown process for many of us? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. I guess it's going to be up to CompTIA and how they do it. I guess a lot of it will depend on how successful it was. If the people taking the exams, if they felt it was successful. There's obviously a cost associated with it. Obviously, you've got someone proctoring it that is either a one-to-one or a one-to-many proctoring, but it's an additional person that has to be paid to be able to do that. Someone that CompTIA has not paid in the past. You do it at a testing center, there's someone who's already there at the testing center. So that's one where it's going to be an extra cost. And I imagine that's what's really made CompTIA not do it at this point. And there's probably a testing experience question about it as well. Well, we're going to get those questions answered. We're going to find out what kind of testing experience it is. Is it a fantastic testing experience? Is it not a fantastic testing experience? Is it worth the money they're investing in it? Do they keep it or not? I don't know. We're going to find out if that happens. it will be very interesting to see if that's where it comes from and breaks out. So have a look, see if that makes sense for what you are doing. It may or it might not make sense. Do I have any IoT devices in my house? My Internet of Things? I absolutely do. I have air conditioning systems. I have Internet of Things associated with cameras. I have IoT devices on my garage doors. I've got all kinds. And quite honestly, I've not done a very good job at protecting them. I need to set up a separate network just for my IoT, which I have not done at this point. But it's not hard to do, but you have to have a separate router to be able to do that. And in some cases, you end up having to double NAT just to implement a scenario like that at home, assuming that your home provider, your internet provider, doesn't give you additional internal IP addresses, which most do not, really be an external IP address, and most do not, to be able to do that. But it would be great if I was able to do that with an extra external IP. I could put up a separate wireless router that was just for my Internet of Things that would completely separate it from my internal network at home, which would be ideal. It would just require a separate wireless router to be able to make that happen. So there's some additional cost associated with it. There's some wireless routers, and I think mine does support an additional wireless VLAN. I guess they call it, on my router, it's a guest network because it's a Soho router. But there's a separate wireless guest network that you could create that does not connect back to your home network. That might be a better way to implement it if your wireless router supports that. Then you can put the Internet of Things on the guest network, assuming it's properly protected from the outside, and then keep your home network over separated from those pieces. That way, if somebody was to somehow gain access to my garage door IoT device, they rooted it, they were able to get access and hop from there to other places on the network, they would only be able to go to other IoT devices. They would not be able to go to my internal devices on my network, which would be ideal. That's what you would be hoping for. So now I have a new project to work on. Thank you, person in the chat room, for giving me a new project to do. Maybe that would be worth doing a video about too. I think many people are in that particular scenario to be able to have that there. Let's go to the calls real quick. 850, my neck of the woods. Let's see if we can click the right button. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Caller. Maybe it's not my neck of the woods, or maybe it is. Maybe that's sort of.
Hey,
hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Corey Travis, and calling from Tallahassee, Florida.
Right down the street, right down Tennessee Street, right down North Monroe. What can we do for you, sir?
Actually, I was just calling in to listen. I couldn't get it online. Technically at work was the downtime, so I was calling to, just listen in to your actual session today.
Now, are you actually at work? You're not working from home?
No, I'm essential staff for the semester.
This is the way it sometimes works for us. I understand. Well, you've hit us right at the end of the study group, unfortunately. I was just about to close it up before I saw the 850 come up, since I am also in the Tallahassee area. I like to pick up those phone calls. But for you and for those of you that are watching or listening, the replay of this is always available on YouTube immediately afterwards. And it takes me a couple of hours to get it on the podcast download sites, but that only takes a couple of hours, and the replay is up there as well. So even if you miss the bulk of this, you can always catch it on the replay and listen to the replays as well. Those are always available too.
Okay. I appreciate it, Professor.
I appreciate your call, and best of luck. I hope things work out for you there.
All right, thanks.
It's one where some of us do have to go into the office. That's one of those where there's still people working every day. Mrs. Professor Messer has her nursing license. She's not working in the industry currently, so she's helping me. So we have a lot of friends that do, though, that are in the industry, and it is we're very, very happy that we have people who are dedicated to keeping things running, to keeping the lights on, the medical professionals doing what they're doing. Cannot say enough about the sacrifice that they're making. So thank you for the things that you're doing, all of you that are essential work and keeping the networks running and keeping the systems going and keeping everything else happening. We could not do it without you. Thanks for being here on the study group. We do another one of these next week. Stop back by next Wednesday. We'll do a Security Plus study group. We're glad that you were able to be with us in our first hour today, where I was asking you questions from Network Plus. And thank you for your calls and the chat messages. We couldn't do this after show unless there was someone after here to do a show for. So thank you so much for that. Thanks for joining us. We will see you next time on the Network Plus study group. Thanks, everyone. Be safe.